Welcome back to Inside the Plant, brought to you by United Prairie, your source for real world agronomy insights, fertilizer updates, and conversations with people out there in the field making it happen every day. I'm Josh Rund, and today we have multiple guests on our show with us as United Prairie is gearing up for our 2026 Innovation Farm Field Day on August 4th. I'm excited to have our agronomy manager back on, Kyle Meece, in our 2026 Agronomy Intern team with me as well. We've got Cassie, Mitchell, Callie, and Lucas all here with us today. Folks, thanks for taking the time to visit with me this morning to talk about your experience as interns here and what our farmers can look forward to as we approach our field day coming up here in August. So to start out, we're going to talk with our agronomy intern team. So we've got 4 individuals in here that I'm going to let introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their experience with our agronomy internship. So go ahead and we'll start with Callie. Talk about us, give us your name, where you go to school, what your major is, and then what grade you're going to go into in the fall.
My name is Callie Eisenman. I'm going to the University of Illinois, and I'm studying ag business with a concentration in markets and management, and I'm going into my junior year.
Hello, my name is Mitchell Wright. I'm from Ogden, Illinois. I go to the University of Illinois studying crop sciences with a concentration in ag business. I'll be a junior this fall.
Hi, my name is Cassie Hughes. I'm from Pontiac, Illinois. I go to ISU right now. My major is crop and soil science with a minor in business, and I'll be a sophomore in the fall.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucas Wiesbrook. I will be a senior at the University of Illinois here in Champaign, studying in Meece, which is in ag technology and ag business.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking some time this morning to visit with us. So, Lucas, we'll start with you since you've got the mic. Have there been any projects or things you've worked on this summer that have been in particular interest to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, every day has been a project for us, especially when you're working with Kyle. But every day we've been working with different trials. Every trial is a different project that you're going to get results in at the harvest season. So, I mean, whether that's with our drone applications or we've had some side dress stuff or just with the ground rig. So realistically, we've had multiple different projects throughout this season, and yeah, excited to see some results when harvest comes around.
Awesome. Anyone else have a project or something they would like to mention that they worked on this summer in particular?
I've really enjoyed helping out at the innovation farm at the beginning of the summer. We wrote out all this on all the stakes and put those in the ground to mark out each trial, and we got to be there when they were planting the fields and riding the planter and stuff like that. And then we also helped a few weeks ago with spraying foliar trials and doing all that. So it's been really interesting to see that whole process and everything that goes into it.
Awesome. That's great. So let's talk about field scouting. Some of you have done quite a bit of scouting here this summer. So Mitchell, why don't you give us some details about what you noticed or what you saw in the field this summer?
Some things that I've noticed is, how products work. Obviously, you go out in fields and you see weeds that are either burnt or killed, or you see resistance out there as well. So it's kind of interesting to see how the different products work and how they're used and how weather and different things can affect them.
Awesome. So Cassie, what about you? Anything else you noticed this summer or something you took away from your scouting?
So we've actually seen some fungus here after all this rain. We were out and we saw Mitchell saw some tar spot, and then we saw some possible southern rust in some fields, and that's been interesting to see how it can pop up in different plants in different fields and then not in others.
Awesome. Great. So I'm nervous to ask this question because all of you deal with Mr. Kyle Meece, but is there something that happened this summer that was memorable to you? Something you think will stick with you throughout the summer as we all giggle because I know there's got to be something good.
Yeah, I can start that off. I would say the most memorable day was when Kyle and I went side dressing, and it was extremely wet in that field, and I heard him yell multiple times, "I've never farmed like this. I don't like to farm like this. There's no reason for me to farm like this." And it summed up how this season has been for growers and for retailers all year, with the planting conditions that we had and then the crazy amount of rain that we had throughout that season. Everyone's just trying to get everything done, get their nitrogen passes in, and make decisions that we probably shouldn't make, but we end up doing it. And I would say that that'd be the most memorable, and it's definitely what's summed up a lot of our summer so far.
Gotcha. Anybody else got a memorable memory here from your summer with United Prairie?
I think one of my most memorable moments with the team was when we spent 3 hours in a truck. All 5 of us crammed in one vehicle. We went to Indiana to go meet our melon farmer. And while it was fun to be there and learn about the melons, we were all pretty loopy by the time we got back because it was a very long day.
I'd say one of the things that's most memorable to me would be working with the spray drones. Just recently, Kyle's allowed some of us interns to fly and spray fields with those spray trials, and it's been something really cool that I find very interesting.
Obviously, the weather has been a big part of this summer, and there were a lot of days that were really rainy. And there was one week that it had just been raining a bunch, and we found a couple days that we were able to scout fields. And I was on my last field up by Farmer City, and it had just a storm just went through there, and I was like, I just want to get it done. I had to go mark out some trials, find some flags, scout the whole field. And Kyle had told me that the flags were on one side of the field, so I'm walking through this super muddy field to get to the flags, and I'm on the side of the field trying to call Kyle and where are these flags, and they were on the other side of the field. So
So did he do that on purpose? Did he send you the other way on purpose, or do you think it was an honest mistake?
he might have. I don't know. You
It was
never
on
know.
purpose. So this is a question I'm going to answer for you. He did it on purpose to you. Yep. Been around him long enough. This was on purpose. Yep. But it's a good learning lesson. Always trust but verify. Correct. So that's great. So we've got our agronomy intern team here. Had a pretty memorable summer. A great group of young individuals here from across East Central Illinois. As you can hear, students not only from the Champaign area, but we've got students from southern part of our territory, the western part of our territory, students from the University of Illinois who've gone to Parkland, who are at ISU. And so it's a great program that Kyle has been a kind of the leader on for the past few years as the agronomy manager. And these students do a lot. They do a lot at our research farm. They do a lot out there scouting fields for our farmers and for our salespeople. And so speaking of our research farm, we've got a pretty big day coming up. So Kyle, let's talk a little bit about the innovation farm, the field day that's coming up and on August 4th. Give us some details on that, please.
Yeah, so I actually get a chance to finally defend myself a little bit here. So the field day is coming up on August 4th. Very similar outline to what we've done in the past, where we're going to have growers meet out at the farm. There's plenty of parking out there. We're going to spend about 3 hours out there just going through some of the research, not only doing at the research farm itself, but then I've implemented a lot of larger scale trials this year. Had more plans at the beginning of the season. Mother Nature has kind of dictated a lot of what we could get accomplished and what our sales team has been able to get in. But we still have a tremendous amount of data that's going to be coming through there. Just a number of different things. And it's not just the basics of a foliar trial or fungicide trials, but I'm trying to take a deep dive into a lot of different things into understanding how to get nutrient release out of the soil profile, how to get more active ingredient to our plants. That's something I think Josh and I will go through here in a little bit when it comes to fungicide timing. But we're going to follow that up. We're going to do something a little different this year. Once the field day is over, we're going to go down to Unity West, which is just a couple miles down the road. We're going to have lunch there. And then we have a group coming in from Shunk Financial just to talk about succession planning and estate planning. And I know for a lot of you listening, there may be reservations about going through some of that stuff. And how do you have those conversations? And how does your son or your daughter have that conversation with you? And I can tell you firsthand, it is a challenging conversation. My mother unexpectedly passed away last year, and it's not something that we had done a good job of. And so as my brother, my sister, myself, and my father now walk down that path, this group for us has been phenomenal. And I just think it's worth listening in, whether you do something with them or another business that does something of this nature, just listening to what they have to say and starting to think about it is the most important thing. And I know my father told me here just weeks ago. He's like, we should have been doing this years ago. And I said, I know, you just didn't want to listen to us that we needed to be doing it years ago, but we're doing it now. And that's the important side of things.
Yeah, I think that's great. So once again, on that field day, not only offering our farmers insight into their crops, into what's coming out, the products that are going to be here. Those are all things that every company, a lot of companies are doing, but also touching on what's next, not just in the field, but what's next for that farmer. If you want to retire, if you want to have a life after agriculture, what does that look like? How do you pass that on to the next generation, whether that's a child, a grandchild, or a friend? I think listening to it, and once again, a zero pressure scenario where it's just lunch. You're going to go in, we're going to eat lunch in the air conditioning, and be able to listen to folks talk about how you can go about some of those things and how you can get that process started with zero pressure is important.
And I think one of the other important things, Josh, is just the networking ability that you can have there. There's others in the room that are probably going to have the same questions that you're going to have. They may or may not ask them. And I think we always find it's always the meeting after the meeting where you learn the most. You listen to everybody, what they have to say, and then you start talking to your peers around you and you get their insight. What are they doing? What could you be doing differently? And I think that's what it's all about. We hope to have a great turnout at the field day once again this year. And I think this is something a little bit more exciting that we can add to the end of it.
And Kyle, talking about the field day too, what's going on at the Innovation Farm specifically that you're maybe more excited about the most out there?
You bet. So there's probably, I haven't counted up in total, but I'd say there's somewhere between 125 to 150 different replicated trials out on the research farm this year. Again, as I mentioned earlier, some of it are the basics of foliar applications, fungicide applications, but as we sit in some tough economic times as growers, it's really trying to dial in the dollars and cents. And I've said this a lot, but the agronomics is important. The economics is extremely important. And then there's the logistical side of things. So what are some things that we can implement not only at that farm, but in hopes in the long run, implementing into your own operations? So some of the things that I'm looking at, I'm still really diving into nitrogen studies. Heavily. I know some of us listening may think, well, this is just basic. I'm kind of taking it to another level. I'm trying to see how low we can truly go and still obtain top end yields, and understanding what mineralization potential is on our really good East Central Illinois soils. What are some alternative products that we could bundle in that are maybe a lower cost per unit nitrogen in the end, or can help the plant more efficiently utilize the nitrogen into a protein into that plant, and maybe take away some of our synthetic applied sources. Same thing in dry fertilizer, trying to figure out how we can how we can dive a little bit deeper into the soil profile and cycle some of that nutrition. This would be my third year I've been working on that. And it's a long-term play. This is not something where we can put a product out there in 1 year, expect we're going to see results in year two. This is a 4 or 5 year commitment for me, and I'm offsetting some costs from synthetic fertilizers, reinvesting some dollars into alternative products, and in the end is I'm saving money and hoping to achieve the same. And to be quite honest, I'm hoping to achieve higher yields, so a higher return. And so the initial savings, what am I doing with that money? Well, some of it may just be going into pocket because we need to. Some of it may be reinvestment in other things. So we got a little bit of that. What we're getting ready to do, we got this targeted on Wednesday. We're going to go out and get our fungicide trials in this year on a research farm. I'm going to replicate what I do out in the larger fields. We're going to look at different products in soybeans, different products in corns, try to get an idea of what's performing the best versus maybe things that are still performing but not giving us a higher return. And one thing I challenged myself at the beginning of the season, as we all sit here and we think about what's going on, we see the planes flying, we see the helicopters flying, we see the drones out there, is we all make an assumption when we go and spray that if I'm going to go spray 7 ounces of Veltima, I assume that when I spray that, every bit of that 7 ounces is getting into that plant. But as we all sit here and think of what the last week was, 90 plus degree temperatures, heat indexes well over 100, airplanes, drones, helicopters flying from early in the morning till late at night. When you get in the heat of that day, what percentage of that product being applied could potentially be evaporated or dry too quick and not get into the plant? So I've had a couple companies I've challenged, and they brought me some products just to help ensure, or hopefully ensure, that we're getting all the active ingredient load, all of our investment into that plant, which in turn I think should stretch out residual activity and stretch out overall performance in the event that we do get some disease.
So are those some of those products, Kyle, that are we want to talk about, final testing stages or something new that you have on the innovation farm? This might be the first year. Is it not is it not necessarily a specific product that you've got, but is it products that are tag teaming with others to help them be more efficient?
Yeah, so this what I'm doing with these, I've got two products in mind. One of them is called Varium that comes from CHS. Another product is called NanoPro that comes from Nano Yield, I believe is that group. I could be wrong there. But those are brand new for this year they may not be new to the industry. They're new for Kyle Meece and United Prairie's research. But what we're always trying to look for is not just what the individual product can do, but what can the synergism between products do. And it may not be something like this. It could be something as simple as, hey, we're putting a foliar feed in addition to a fungicide application. Well, why are you doing that? Well, the plant needs that foliar nutrition, but when that plant senses on its leaf surface area, hey, I like what I'm seeing here, I'm going to pull you in. And guess what? Your fungicides are free ride going in there too. Anything else you're putting in there, maybe it's biostimulants, maybe it's sugar movers, maybe it's a number of stress mitigation products. So we're just trying to get it in there because as that plant continues to battle the same heat and stress that you do, I mean, Josh and all the intern team, what do we have the luxury during 100-degree weather? What can we do? We can put sunscreen on. That plant can't put sunscreen on, but what it does is it builds a heavier, waxier cuticle, which makes it harder for things to penetrate through. So how can we help facilitate that process to make sure that we're getting it in? That's just one thing I'm kind of excited about from the early stages. Now, as we get into later in the season, I think a lot of us, fungicide time is the last dollar spent, I think, for most of us during the season. And I get that. There is a lot of yield still to pack into that plant that goes from R2, R3, R4, R5, R6. So we're going to make some late season applications, double fungicide apps, things of that nature too.
Awesome. So we've got our internship team still here with us. So what role do they play out there at the innovation farm with you?
Yeah, so this was a little bit different of year. Not always is the intern team here for when planting season takes place. Just when school gets out and when they start, sometimes we're able to go earlier. They were here for part of that planning process. So as Cassie said earlier, or Callie, one of them, just with you being able to run, label the stakes and help through that, get an opportunity to jump in the planner with Mitch and understand what all the precision monitors are doing, what the starter system's doing, why we're doing this. That's part of it. But then that next step in that season is the post side of things. And we're getting those foliar applications on. I have the guys here at Apex, they spray the whole field with herbicides, so that's a constant rate. But when it comes to individual trials, I mean, they're watching me run the old Princess Hagee. And to be honest, this was the first year that I don't know that I ever got out of the Hagee. I've got a team this year that has the capability of understanding how to mix the products, what I was wanting to achieve, ensuring that they were mixed correctly, and we could just get canisters on and roll through it. And we got those foliar applications done in no time. Part of the tough side of the research farm, unfortunately, only one person experienced this, is you still have weeds on the outside edges. So I had a meeting one day and Cassie suffered some of the hot temperatures going out there and cleaning up some of that with the bean hook that somehow she bent. I'm not sure how you bend a weed hook, but for anybody who's ever used a weed hook, trying to cut grass with it is not ideal. But there's also the edges of the field along the railroad track. So what we're coming, Wednesday, we're going to go out there and we're going to do all the fungicide trials on the beans, at least right now. Don't think the corn's going to be quite ready, and it's going to be the same thing. It's not a 2-person sprayer, so nobody can get in there. I guess they could get in there and sit on my knee or drive it, but I personally, I don't let anybody else drive it. If somebody's going to run over the crop, it'd rather be me than me yelling at them.
Yeah, you and yelling at yourself. Yeah.
But the last side of it, I mean, what we've been working on for the last week and a half is just drone work. And we took on some drones here about 3 years ago. It's not a business that we wanted to expand. It was a business we wanted to help for those growers that have smaller fields. The airplanes can't fly, the helicopters can't fly, and our ground rigs do more damage than good. So we've been doing a lot of that, but a lot of the work with the drones has been trial work. And I can't even tell you the volume of trials I have as an individual basis right now. And I think that's something I want to emphasize. I don't mean to rattle on here, but one of my goals with the team this year was to have them work on a few more projects than probably what we have done in the end. And part of that was just the sales guys having a tough time getting trials out when the season ended up the way that it did. And I think there's always room for constructive criticism. There's always room for improvement. And that's something we need to emphasize with our sales team, with our operations team, and that even with grower listeners, if there's things that you want to do, we have a team here who can monitor that all season long. I'm not expecting you to do it. What I'm expecting out of you as a grower is to be a good participant, to allow us to do the trial work and to get us the results back. They are very risk-free trials. If it makes you return on investment, you pay for it. If it doesn't make return on investment, United Prairie comps at 100%. But if you do the trial and you do not get us the yield data in the end, you will pay for the product. That's just part of it. There has to be some skin in the game for the grower just as well as us. And it's unbelievably important for me to have that information to put in our end of the year trial book.
And the yield data from a farm, it's pretty easy for them to send that to you, right? That's not a difficult thing to get to you.
You know, one would think it's pretty easy. I've argued this fact with my dad before, as we're both, sitting in combines cutting beans, and I have to remind him every morning, Dad, hook your iPad up to your phone so we have Wi-Fi service. Dad, please calibrate the combine. And I think for some of the younger listeners, I'm sure you can all relate, and maybe even some of the older listeners, you can relate when your fathers or uncles or grandfathers were doing it. It just takes a little bit of time. And I realize harvest is a grind, but it does not take that long to get a combine calibrated to make sure your monitor is functioning. And I mean, guys, gals, that data is what we get one chance a year to pull in yield data that's telling us what's going on out in our fields. If we can't take 5 minutes to make sure that those monitors are right, and maybe that's 5 minutes multiple times throughout the season, get them calibrated, like, what are we doing? We have to learn, and the best way for any of us to learn is on our own operations. I can bring you all the data in the world from what we do here, which I think is unbelievably powerful, but when you see it for yourself, it's just a different meaning.
So why, with a world full of field days, we talk about this every single year. I feel like, you're going to a field day here next week, and the University of Illinois and a lot of other places put on field days. Why should farmers come to our field day?
You bet. I like to say everybody can say they differentiate themselves, and what we do here is different than others. And is there similarities? Sure, there's similarities. The one thing that we try to do is I keep everything so unbiased. We're not here at United Prairie. We're not forced to run our brand of product. I'm looking at companies. I've got companies that I work with now that the only reason that I started working with them because they caught my interest on a social media platform, whether that be a TikTok, whether that be X, whether it be Facebook. I mean, we're looking at anything and everything. And our general manager, Kurt Miller, is like, I have free reign. Kyle, go look at what you want. If it makes sense for our growers and it makes sense for United Prairie's business and we can all see return, then we don't need to be segmented to, hey, here's United Prairie's special product that's got their logo and everything like that. I don't want to be that way. I want to look as much as I can. And what I find is that, as much as I wish I could just go to one company and they could provide everything that we needed, the fact of the matter is it's not the case. And that's where we're starting to look at those synergisms. I may take something from Verdesian and I may take something from a Pivot Bio or a BW Fusion or a Meristem. And I mean, man, this one over here works really well. And when I put it in conjunction with something that this other group has, I'm seeing, 2 + 2 is now 6 or 8. It's convoluted to try to figure that out. It takes time, but as we start to understand the growth and development of the plant and the demands throughout the season and what these products are doing, and I allow myself to dig deep in the weeds to get the science behind it, that's where we differentiate ourselves. And I feel like I've got tremendous compliments over the years for our field days. I've got tremendous compliments on the winter meetings, and we just want to continue that. But we're always looking for suggestions, from others.
Yeah, I think that's one thing, once again, we're very open to is if farmers see something or if they've had experience with something, bring that to Kyle, bring that to us where we're willing to talk and look at it and potentially put it into a trial. And so the field day, you can RSVP for our field day by sending an email, or if you're on UP Connect, you can find us on Connect to send your RSVP. You can also call our office here at Tolono. That's 217-485-6000. And we hope to see you on August 4th. We hope to see a great group of people out there. And once again, we're going to feed you afterward. We've got the financial piece at the end as well in an air-conditioned gym. So we hope that people will be out there. And so we're kind of coming up on the final thoughts of our podcast here. And so to start out, Kyle, we talked about it earlier. We're seeing a lot of helicopters. We're seeing a lot of airplanes out there right now doing our crop dusting. And so for our listeners, also want this to be educational for folks that are out there too. What are those planes and helicopters doing out there? What are they spraying and what are they trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so the biggest goal that all those aerial applicators are doing right now is we're trying to mitigate the potential for disease coming in, and potentially in some case if insect pressure hits a threshold, that we need to treat with insecticide. So I'd say a vast amount of them are probably more focused on fungicide applications. The reason we see so much of them right now is because we're targeting a VT or vegetative tassel application on corn, VT to R1, and on soybeans, we're targeting growth stages of typically R3 to R4. I think for most of you listening, you'll understand what those growth stages mean, but maybe there's some of you that don't. The reason we target this, and I use this analogy all the time, and I want you to think about it with a corn plant. When that corn plant starts tasseling, that corn plant has one job to do the rest of the season. It's to fill that ear. It will 100% cannibalize itself as much as it can to feed its children to produce the grain that we need at the end of the season. So we're trying to hit that application window that when that plant can become the most susceptible to disease coming in. And I've been surprised. I mean, the intern group here, they saw some tar spot early on. We've seen some potential southern rust. We sprayed a field this weekend that was had some northern corn leaf blight in it. But I haven't seen as much disease in this local area as I thought that we would. That doesn't mean it's not going to come. So when I look at a jug of fungicide, it's a 2-compartment jug. Part of it is for disease control. The other part of it is stress mitigation. And so I think we've been stressed beyond belief from too much rain, beginning of the season, too little rain. We were 15 inches behind on moisture, and then we went to too much rain, and now we're bouncing back and forth. But that's in all, that's what those applicators are doing. There's multiple yellow planes out there. If someone says they see the yellow plane, oh, I also saw him 40 miles away, he's all over the place. No, most of them are yellow planes. So it's multiple companies that are doing that, and as well as we're seeing the drones out there. So this is going to be probably a 2 to 3 week grind. We're probably in week number 2 of the grind. So we're going to keep seeing a lot of applications based on planning dates for those airplanes, helicopters, drones, and even our ground rigs out there.
Gotcha. So you'll see those flying through the air probably through the end of the month.
Yeah.
Easily. The
biggest obstacle, I know, Josh, you and I talked about this right now, is as the smoke has come in from, northern Minnesota and in from Canada. Is that a bad thing? I tell you what, from what we've seen, it seems like we see these smokes every year now from these wildfires. It has not been a bad thing. Health-wise, could it be a bad thing? Yeah, you can listen to all the health experts on that. I completely get that. You need to be mindful of it. What it hurts us the most is just the safety of the pilots. That is the utmost important. I don't care what the crop yields in the end. Those guys are in a very dangerous business. We just had there's a helicopter that went down over by St. Joe last week. I believe that pilot is okay. I've not heard on all that, but it's a scary situation, and it's not the first time that it's happened. So those guys are going to be a little bit delayed. As a grower, be patient. They're doing the best they can, but they cannot go up there when we've got so many windmills in this area anymore, and cell phone towers and high voltage power lines. They got to go out there when it's safe for them. So be cognizant of that and be patient.
Yeah, I know this smoke coming in from Canada is kind of wild. I mean, yesterday I was out driving around and spoke with someone that was driving down from kind of the northern Chicago, kind of up by the border of our state, and he said that there was a point in time where he had to turn on his headlights because the smoke was so significant and bad out there on the roadway. So if you're thinking about that at the ground level, up there in the sky, it's a lot more crucial.
It was very different from being down here, even going up where Lucas is from Lost Scent. We were up there all day yesterday, and just the haze difference that much closer to Chicago in the northern part of the U.S. was just, it was pretty wild. No pun intended.
No, wildfires. So, and we only have like 2 weeks left in July. I always kind of think of the end of summer as coming when I walk into Walmart and I see the back to school supplies sitting on the shelves, and my kids have the biggest sigh on the planet when they see that. What now, as farmers are gearing away from the growing season, now we might be shifting towards thinking about harvest. What do you think farmers should start thinking about now as we gear towards that part?
Well, I think the one thing that we're always paying attention to each and every day is what the grain markets are doing. And I don't know, I feel like early this morning, the overnight was up pretty crazy on soybeans. So continuing to monitor those markets and take advantage of some opportunities. I mean, there's some pretty decent crop out here at this point in time, from what I'm seeing. So I feel like as we become more confident in the crop and potential yield that we have, it allows our marketing ability to increase. I know I've had some questions from some growers of what's fertilizer price is going to do. We are actually having a sales meeting tomorrow with the whole sales team, and we're going to go through some of that stuff. I know most of us don't want to think about it, but we got to start thinking about fall applications. We got to start thinking about lime applications. For those that are not thinking about lime, put it on your radar because, as I mentioned, windmills and turbines, there's another project going on down south that's going to influence some of the quarries and their availability of lime because they're going to grind rock for them windmills more than they're going to grind limestone for us. So that's something to think about. And then we're going to get geared up for harvest. That's, I think, for all of us, one of the most exciting times of the year to understand, what we've done all season. We learn so much, we capture so much information. So I think there's just it's not going to stop. I'm going to try to get away here for 5 days and not answer my phone. That's kind of exciting, but we'll see how that works out.
We have that. We're recording this, just so you know. You can't escape what you just said, because I'm gonna call your bluff on that. You're gonna answer your phone just because it's who you are. So thinking about harvest time this time of year is, fall burn down. We've talked about fall burn down before and the success that we had last year. So just kind of briefly go through some of that, because we're going to talk about it again before we get to fall. What kind of application are you thinking now? What should farmers be thinking about as far as burn down?
Yeah, and like you said, Josh, we're going to go through this in more detail as we get closer, but that is part of that decision-making process right now. Fall burn down is something that we always hope to achieve, and it doesn't always come to fruition because we're so busy with everything else as growers. But if we can set down a foundation of keeping winter annual weeds from emerging, that could even carry over maybe to a little bit of summer annual control. Not a lot, but some. I tell you what, as a guy who sprayed fall burn down on all of our operation when it came to ground going into corn last year, I will do it every year. There was no better feeling than being able to go out there and not have to work fields twice, trying to get a good seed bed. Do we need to take the accelerator over there and then run the field cultivator? Do we need to put a hotter mix in and spend more money? I think many times we find ourselves spending more money to get a quicker burn so we can get the trash to flow through our tillage equipment. And the old saying, let's start clean and stay clean. So, we're looking at some mixes, some very basic mixes. A little bit of Valor and dicamba goes a long way. It's a versatile option. When I say versatility, I mean you can spray it ahead of corn, you can spray it ahead of beans, you can plant either crop into it. There's plenty of rotational interval on that. You could get about as basic as you want there, even just some simple Weed Master Rainstar 2,4-D dicamba. But again, we can go into that in more detail here later on when we get closer to that season, but definitely should be on your radar, and I would implement it if winter annuals are something that you deal with.
Gotcha. So thinking about that fall burn down, thinking about harvest, start to think about fall now as we come to the close of July. Even though some of us think that's far away, it's not. We are close, and getting closer every single day. We talked about a lot here today, but Kyle, is there anything else you're thinking about or that kind of at the top of your mind? I know there's been a lot going around about random stuff like daylight savings time and getting rid of that. What are your thoughts on that as someone in the ag world?
I don't have many thoughts on that. I don't watch a lot of TV and get wrapped up in a lot of different things. It is what it's going to be. My final thoughts, honestly, for this episode, Josh, is, as it is, it's today's July 20th. I've got exactly a little over 2 weeks left with this group of interns sitting at this table. And I've been fortunate over so many years to have great groups of students, great groups of interns working with me. It's the same for all of these guys and gals that are sitting here with me. They've been tremendous help. It's going to be tough when they leave. It's also going to be a celebration on that Friday because I can go back to some me time. But this group has done a phenomenal job this year. Dealing with my bantering and giving them crap all the time, and some might call it cruel. My wife and daughters, I treat them no different than I treat the four individuals in this room.
Well, you're getting it all.
But I'm truly appreciative of each and every one of them and the level of commitment that they've brought to this summer. What they've done, and we're fighting the high heat and temperatures, and we're going to go back out. We're leaving here, and we've got a big day of drone spraying tomorrow. We got a big day Tuesday and a big day Wednesday, so that I can try to get out of here for a few days. So, do they complain? Yes. As I'm looking at them,
should they complain? Yes.
1,000%. But no, that's how I want to end this episode. I'm truly grateful for them and everything that they've done this summer, and build a relationship and a long-term friendship with each and every one of them.
So looking at our intern group, back to school is about a month away. Are we ready to go back, finish it out?
I've had a really good time this summer, but I'm definitely ready to get back in the swing of things, start my classes. I've been living on campus all summer and it's very dead during the summer, so I'm ready for everyone to move back in and yeah, just get back in the swing of things.
Kind of ditto to what Callie said. I live in the farmhouse fraternity on campus, and there's a couple guys living with me there this summer, and it has been very dead. And I think we're all kind of ready for all of our brothers to move back in. We're also ready for some Illini football, so there's always that.
Being somebody that doesn't live on campus, I tend to more dread going back to school than a lot of people that do live on campus, just because I drive every morning. Um, but yeah, I think summer's really my thrive time. Like I show horses and whatnot, so I tend to get a lot more out of the summer than I do out of the school year.
Yeah, I definitely have mixed feelings on this topic. Not excited to go into my senior year. I don't want that to end, but very excited to get back and watch some Illinois football. And with that comes harvest season. And I'm very excited for harvest. But yeah, again, I don't want to give up this summer yet and this internship yet. But yeah, so mixed feelings on that.
Yeah, because Lucas, your next internship fair won't be an internship fair; it'll be a job fair, right? You'll be
That's
looking for
right.
that full-time job out
So
there.
if there's any employers out there listening, my name is Lucas Weisbrook. You can call me at 815-992-8862.
Oh, in come the spam phone calls to old Lucas. Well, that's awesome. It's hard to believe, folks, that we're already halfway through or over halfway through 2026. And harvest, once again, right around the corner. I want to thank Kyle, Mitchell, Callie, Cassie, and Lucas for taking the time and imparting their knowledge on us and their experience that they've had at our internship program. And as always, we wish our interns the best of luck and continue to see how they progress. And we always pay attention. That's what I want to tell these folks too is, Kyle talks and preaches to our interns all summer, but we watch. There's a lot of times, and you might not know it, but we're paying attention to what you do, the career paths you take, the steps you're taking moving forward here. We pay attention to what you're doing, and we're proud of what our interns do a lot of the time. So I want to thank you for taking time and picking us as a place to be. And for everyone listening, this is exactly what Inside the Plan is all about. Real conversations, real decisions, and real insight from the professionals and soon-to-be professionals that we trust in our industry. Thank you for tuning in. And again, we hope to see you at our Innovation Farm Field Day on August 4th, right outside of Sedoras, off of 600 North. And if you need to RSVP or you'd like to, please get a hold of a United Prairie Agronomy salesman or seed specialist, or you can reach out to us at 217-485-6000 to RSVP for our field day. If you found this episode helpful, please be sure to subscribe and share it with someone else you know out there. But we'll be back and be back soon with another episode of Inside the Plant brought to you by United Prairie.